Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's well and everyone's keeping safe and sound at this time. I'm really delighted today to be here to launch this KPMG report on opportunities for the Irish horticulture sector. When I commissioned the report last October, I wanted to understand the challenges and identify the opportunities for the sector, and to use that information to analyse and inform a strategy which will, I hope, map out actions for change to enable each sector within this industry to fulfil its potential. However, we all know a lot has changed since October. Costs have risen significantly, as many of you will be aware, in particular energy and fertiliser costs, largely because of the awful war in Ukraine. And this is really adding to the well-known challenges that the horticulture sector was already facing. So difficult times certainly for the sector. While the support packages that Minister McConalogue and I announced last month will go some way to addressing the immediate impact of these issues, for those really most at risk, we still need to consider through this report the strategy that will follow and the longer term ambition necessary to ensure that the sector's future sustainability and growth is a solid one. We now have a document that you will be presented with very shortly that can inform a strategy for the sector. I think it offers an exploration of the underlying causes of instability in the sector and subsector cross-cutting factors, if you like, and potential actions to address these challenges. The development of a strategy for the sector will ensure implementation of the actions that will deliver the biggest benefits to society and to the sector, therefore ensuring its growth and sustainability. I would like to formally thank the Horticulture Industry Forum Subcommittee for all their work on this report, and I really look forward to your continued and valued engagement in the development of a strategy later this year. We will be launching a public consultation in September with a view to publishing the final strategy in Q1 of next year. That said, knowing the energy and passion of the horticulture sector, my officials will be standing by to receive any immediate written contributions once you've had a chance to listen to today's presentation and to read the report in full. It's a very detailed, invaluable report, I feel. I think there's a lot of work in there and there's a lot of really, really valuable information to inform, yourselves, ourselves and policymakers and those who will, once we pull together the strategy, will use an awful lot of what's in the report to do that. So look, really, before I hand over, I want to thank Requive and KPMG for producing this really comprehensive report. There are opportunities in the horticultural sector. I think you will see them in this report. And really, I think the authors have brought insights based on the existing state of play as well as a pathway forward into one document, which I think will be an invaluable resource to us all as we develop a strategy for this vitally important domestic sector. So I hope you will enjoy the webinar. And look, please get back in touch with any of your observations and comments, and we will work collectively together to develop a really proactive, progressive and positive strategy for the future, for the horticulture sector in the future. So thank you very much and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you very much, Minister. Good morning, everyone attending. My name is Requive White. It's a pleasure to present this overview of our report, Opportunities for the Irish Horticulture Sector. As our starting point for context, there were three key areas that formed the high-level scope when we started this report. Firstly, we wanted to review the context of the horticulture industry in Ireland and then evaluate the sector's potential and ambition. Then secondly, we considered the various subsectors within horticulture. You will see we've covered a range of sectors, including field crops, soft fruit, the amenity sector, and we'll dive into that as we go through the presentation. And then thirdly, we considered international case studies. Countries we looked at include the Netherlands and New Zealand, and you'll see in the detailed report there are key learnings from those countries that we considered. We considered various secondary sources and reports, industry reports, and I'd like to thank all the stakeholders that participated in our consultations. We spoke to growers and various committees and organizations within the sector, so thank you to everyone for your valuable inputs. In terms of the presentation today, I followed the structure of the report. So once you have the report, you will see it follows the same structure. There's essentially 4 components. Firstly, we set the scene, the context for the sector, looking at what could the ambition for the sector be, what should we consider. Then we identify various cross-cutting factors that have an influence across the different subsectors. Then we also identify specific actions that we need to consider to address many of these challenges and pursue opportunities identified. Thirdly, we have a subsector analysis looking at the individual subsectors, providing a snapshot, looking at the strengths, opportunities, and weaknesses, and also identifying specific actions that need to be considered. And then finally, we have our conclusion to draw together all of our actions identified in the report. To set the scene, the horticulture sector is the 4th largest sector within agriculture, with a farm gate value of around 467 million in 2020. As I've mentioned, for our report, we've considered various subsectors that make up horticulture. And whilst the sector holds potential for growth, there are various challenges that need to be addressed. And to be able to do this, we need to identify a strategic ambition to guide a coordinated pursuit of opportunities for the sector and to address the challenges. Importantly, if we want to pursue a strategic ambition, we considered an example to grow a more profitable value-added sector, driven by sustainability and innovation. And you will see as we progress in the presentation, sustainability is a key part of the sector's ambition and consideration of how to achieve a viable sector. And importantly, the most direct way we could achieve such an ambition would be to provide existing growers and businesses the confidence to expand and diversify their businesses, and to eventually expand from primary production into activities for value-added production. So that sets our scene for the sector, considering a strategic ambition where we want to grow a more profitable value-added sector. Furthermore, we considered 3 scenarios to say, if this is our ambition for the sector, what could the potential outcomes be? And this will depend on the extent of collaboration between the various stakeholders within the sector. You'll also see that is identified as a crucial element. All stakeholders need to collaborate and take ownership of the sector's future. The first scenario is called a sustainable future. And the idea behind scenario 1 is to achieve a thriving and viable and growing sector. A sustainable future scenario 1 is also the most preferred scenario we would want to see for the sector. And in such an example, all constraints identified will be addressed and opportunities developed. A second scenario would be a status quo scenario where the sector remains stable, but growth remains limited, where we address some challenges, but not all of them. And scenario 3 is a declining sector, which we definitely do not want. And in such a scenario, the sector declines and stagnates, and we don't address the challenges, and we don't collaborate between stakeholders. On a subsector level, it's important to note that different subsectors are on different levels. This is the scenario for the overall sector. If we consider field vegetables, for example, the current status quo would be that of a declining sector. So our preferred outcome, what we'd want to achieve, considering this strategic ambition, is to have a sustainable future for the sector, to achieve collaboration and to address the challenges. Thinking in terms of the broader policy landscape, the Food Vision 2030 aims for Ireland to become a world leader in sustainable food systems over the next decade, delivering benefits for the Irish society and environment. And with this in mind, and considering the strategic ambition, we looked at 3 areas of sustainability that needs to be considered as we pursue this ambition for the sector, and as we attempt to address various challenges. We need to ensure that we can achieve sustainability for the sector across these 3 areas. And these 3 areas include environmental sustainability. Importantly, horticulture is one of the most carbon efficient sectors in Irish agriculture, so there's definitely an opportunity to use the strength to build out the sector's environmental credentials. Secondly, we need economic sustainability. And here we want to ensure, and we need to ensure, the economic viability of growers to have a future. Without growers, we cannot have a sector. And then thirdly, we need social sustainability. This element considers the broader value of the sector, of a self-sufficient sector across financial benefits, the rural economy, and carbon footprint terms. And ultimately, we can contribute to a sustainable food system, pursuing opportunity for pursuing our ambition for the horticulture sector. We can contribute to having a sustainable food system as identified in Food Vision 2030. In terms of the second component of our report, which identified various cross-cutting factors, we had to consider what are the key strategic themes that we need to consider if we want to delve deeper in terms of what are the key issues across the whole sector before considering just specific sectors. And you'll see the 5 areas identified. The 5 strategic themes include markets, specialization, and diversification. What are the market opportunities? How can we develop markets? How can growers specialize? Are there opportunities for diversification? Then importantly, sectoral insights, which is built out further in section 3 of the report, identify specific issues within each subsector. Whilst we have cross-cutting factors, each subsector does have its own unique challenges and opportunities, and specific actions need to be considered to address those specific challenges. Labor and skills is another area identified, and this extends not only to labor and securing an efficient labor in a timely manner, but also having the required skills, thinking longer term, what needs to happen in terms of education and training. How can we support the supply of labor and the sector with skilled workforce? So that in terms of labor and skills. Climate and energy, I've touched on the importance of the sector's relatively low carbon impact. So climate and energy is considered. Some sectors are more reliant on energy than others. And a very important element is research and development, and also education. How can we leverage the research and international best practice to support the sector going forward? So these 5 strategic themes informed our analysis in terms of cross-cutting factors, elements that affect the sector as a whole. And I'll walk us through specific cross-cutting factors. I've selected some of the key elements. You'll see there's more detail available within the report. Firstly, I've mentioned labor. Growers and producers are reliant on temporary workers. So there are issues around securing labor, and then not all workers have transport, and of course, a rising labor cost is also a challenge. In terms of labor, we've identified certain actions. One particular action is to enhance the efficiency of labor permits and to address the need for a seasonal permit scheme. Also consider a permanent seasonal worker scheme to provide additional support. In terms of the longer term, whilst we can enhance the supply of labor and the processes around labor permitting, we need to consider investment in mechanization and how that can help in also addressing cost elements. And broader than just investing, we need to look at indigenous R&D and opportunities for future mechanization within the sector. Secondly, collaboration truly came out as a very strong element for the sector. There are various forms of collaboration that can be considered. One such collaboration example is collaboration between growers, for example, participating in a producer organization, but collaboration between growers can also take a more informal form. For example, knowledge sharing between growers, informal collaboration on different areas. There is also scope for grower and retailer collaboration to have more formal engagement. And key actions around collaboration include knowledge sharing and transfer. So firstly, we mentioned in the report increasing grower participation in POs and production organizations. Other examples of informal collaboration is to develop local working groups to facilitate knowledge sharing, and then also to encourage collaboration between the sector and research organizations and other sectors. For example, biorefineries that could assist in adding value to waste streams. Then improving communication, improving communication between retailers and growers. Then in terms of research and development, we identified the third area, and I think research and development truly is an opportunity to increase productivity and enhance the sector's competitiveness. So if we have the right R&D in place, it can enable innovation to support growth in the sector. It is difficult for individual growers to invest back into their businesses and into their own R&D activities. So there needs to be a broader action in terms of R&D. So one action area identified includes establishing a working group to develop a detailed needs analysis. We need to know what does the sector truly need, and this can then be taken further between key stakeholders. Further, there needs to be support to the horticulture sector to access research and innovation funding from both domestic and European sources. Fourthly, developing new product development and innovation is linked to research and development and this is an area where new products can be developed. I spoke about expanding beyond primary production into value-added products, and this is an area that can consider value-added production. Specific actions in this area include securing funding to support new product development, engaging with relevant role players, for example, Enterprise Ireland and the Department for Trade, Enterprise and Industry. Developing innovation pathways can be important for new product development, especially bio-based products. We need to develop market insights and secure sufficient resources to conduct the relevant research. Then also consider developing different product formats, researching what the opportunities truly are, what is the scope of competition in those specific opportunities, and consider conducting feasibility studies. Also, we can consider international best practice for new product development. Then fifth element is knowledge transfer, and this is also linked to R&D, quite important for the sector. We need to incorporate horticulture into the broader agricultural knowledge and innovation system, to create an environment that's more conducive to growth. So greater resourcing of horticulture advisory services can also go a long way to support this. In terms of actions, we need to develop a roadmap for how we can integrate horticulture back into the agricultural knowledge and innovation system, or ARCIS. So this is truly an important area. I mentioned increasing resourcing. We need to create accelerated training programs for market access and knowledge acquisition. So having access to the right information is also crucial for growers. And then we need to facilitate the role of growers as new knowledge creators and to disseminate that knowledge within the sector, and again, following international best practice. You will see many of these areas are closely linked. I've mentioned earlier education and training, developing and attracting younger generations form part of this. Equipping younger generations and developing succession planning is key to the future sustainability. We need a young generation to enter the sector and to learn from current growers. Specific areas I can mention around education is developing an education pathway for horticulture with a greater investment and promotion of horticulture as a career option. We can attract new entrants by creating more awareness about the sector and the opportunities within the sector. But we can consider providing bursaries and mentoring programs. I think mentoring programs can be very helpful. We also need to develop and modernize the horticulture training and education offering for students. Also, we can develop a graduate training program and with a link to other European colleges and institutions for cross-pollination of ideas and knowledge. And again, providing the right resources to ensure permanent dedicated staff to support the training industry and the development needs for the sector. Then sustainability is the next area. And there are a few elements within sustainability. The one area is to use the sector's sustainability credentials. As I mentioned earlier on, the sector has a low carbon footprint. So developing this benefit into something bigger will require developing some type of a metric. We've termed it hortimetrics. Developing hortimetrics as a common measure to understand and communicate the sector's environmental impact, to share the sector's environmental credentials with the wider society and crucially with consumers. Another area, of course, covered as part of sustainability is growing media. And in terms of growing media, there are both short-term and medium to longer-term actions required. In the short term, there needs to be engagement between stakeholders to develop mechanisms to sustainably use domestic peat supplies in the short term, while in the medium to longer term, there needs to be a focus on research and funding to develop alternatives and easily accessible alternatives, and it needs to be a multidisciplinary approach. Another area is insight and intelligence, and this specifically speaks to growers. There's a lack of sector and farm management data and broader, as you'll see, the report cites different sources of data on the sector, but this is an area that can be improved. We need to have more easily accessible data. Specific actions that we call out that I can mention is developing a horticulture survey, where the department could administer this survey, not publish it publicly, but use this data for evidence-based policy making to support the sector to meet its full potential. Then furthermore, in terms of developing insight, is to establish and evaluate the labor requirements for each subsector, having a better understanding of what each subsector needs, and then developing actions to address those specific needs from there. Then another area is promoting postgraduate student research in the area of sector data. So if we can get graduate students to take part in research in this area, that can go a long way to support the development of sector insight and intelligence. Then number 9, in terms of the factors considered, we touched on promotion, and this includes import substitution. So when we say promotion, it's about promoting the sector, creating a broader awareness, especially around the sector's health credentials and well-being credentials, environmental credentials. And this is across not only food products, but also in terms of the amenity sector, the well-being benefits of plants and green spaces. And in terms of actions, we can develop and implement levers to support import substitution. So considering, firstly, promoting the sector, considering which products are imported, how can we promote our in-season produce to consumers. And another area is also developing controlled environment agriculture, as well as developing recognition of Irish produce with dedicated branding. And another element is the lower food miles in comparison to imported products. Again, our measure of sustainability or hortimetrics can also play a part in promoting Irish produce. Then at number 10 is packaging and food waste, especially in terms of the environment. Packaging and plastic is a key area to consider. there's a growing trend where consumers want packaging that's convenient and safe and considers the environment. So packaging innovation is one area to learn from and adopt international best practice. We could pilot alternative packaging initiatives and provide educate in terms of food waste and limiting food waste. We can provide education on the value of in-season produce, how to best manage your produce to avoid waste. Then there are a few broader elements identified, and we'll soon be moving to the subsectors. We're almost done with the cross-cutting factors. The one important element is understanding the sector's overall impact. So whilst we've touched on the various positives, such as the environmental impact, it can help to conduct a cost-benefit analysis of the sector to inform the sector strategy development process, to have a better understanding of what all the benefits are that the sector brings to the Irish economy. Then the circular bioeconomy links into sustainability. And there's definitely market opportunities to grow the horticulture sector and to sustain the sector's sustainability objectives. Specific actions around circular bioeconomy include identifying key bioeconomy opportunities for the sector, establishing a working group to explore and develop these opportunities, engaging with existing forums, for example, the Irish Bioeconomy Forum, and aligning with key existing policies. In terms of sustainable nutrition, this builds on this concept of a sustainable food system, and actions in this area include focusing on consumer messaging on horticulture as a holistic component of the food system, and developing the sector story and a toolkit to communicate this story. Then innovation and value-added products speaks to our strategic ambition of creating a more value-added sector. And in terms of plant-based products, as an example, and plant-based ingredients, that is a key opportunity for product innovation and value-added products. So we need to support the development of new sources and types of ingredients and develop opportunities for growers to participate in the broader value chain. Then finally, smart and precision agriculture is another area which presents opportunities, and we need to identify key technologies and best practices that Irish growers can use. We need to provide, of course, resourcing for horticulture advisory services to support growers in adopting these opportunities and these mechanisms, excuse me, and to provide funding for these types of initiatives. So that is a high-level overview of these key cross-cutting factors and some of the actions that we've identified. Moving on from the overarching cross-cutting factors, there is a subsector analysis, the third part of the report, and this you'll see here, this is an overview of what we did and what we considered, and you'll see in the detailed report there's 3 key areas to the subsector analysis. Specifically, we provide a snapshot of each subsector with key statistics, and then we also present a SWOT analysis for each of the sectors, and then we move on into a potential strategic ambition. So we've had the overall strategic ambition for the sector as a whole at the start of this presentation, but then each of the subsectors will also have the specific focus in terms of the opportunities and constraints that they face and what needs to happen. So those are the 3 areas covered within the subsector analysis. I won't go through all of them in detail, but I will touch on some of the sectors. You will see I've highlighted 6 areas here in terms of strategic ambition on a subsector level. You'll see there's more detail within the report. For example, glasshouse crops is also covered. I've not included all of it here, just in terms of giving you the high-level overview. So you'll see in the report the various subsectors are covered in terms of that snapshot, SWOT analysis, and then the strategic ambition and specific actions. And you'll see the specific actions for each of the subsectors on some level align with the overarching or cross-cutting factors. So you have actions that need to happen across the sector, and then some of those clearly come out prominently within subsectors, and some subsectors will have their own unique actions that are required. To look at the subsectors, we identified specific ambitions. So, for example, mushrooms is one industry which is very strong in terms of exports. It's a good example of where the Irish mushroom sector is a good exporter, a big exporter. And a strategic ambition in terms of the mushroom sector could be to become the most sustainable global leader in terms of primary and value-added mushroom products. So again, it speaks to the idea of extending beyond primary production into value-added productions. Importantly, the amenity sector is also covered, and the strategic ambition for amenity is to make Irish-grown plants the first choice of buyers at home and abroad, driven by our high plant health status and sustainability credentials. Again, our plant health status and sustainability credentials are key strengths across the sector, and particularly within the amenity sector. In terms of potatoes, again, the specifics there is to grow the sector by increasing penetration of Irish potatoes into key channels. Field vegetables, you will see in the detailed report, has a number of challenges. I mentioned the different scenarios at the start of the presentation, and I mentioned that field vegetables has a status quo, we could call a status quo situation of a declining sector. Growers are really under pressure. The Minister mentioned the rising input costs across fertilizer, packaging, and energy across the sector. So there is some key actions required for field vegetables, and collaboration is also again key in supporting the field vegetable sector, moving from a state of decline into sustainability, into a growing sector. In terms of soft fruit, we specifically mentioned strawberries. There's also a note on other areas within soft fruit, but you can see that in the report. And then another example is our apple sector, which presents opportunity. Some of the actions are more longer term. It will take time to expand domestic production, but there are opportunities. And the ambition we identified is to profitably increase the volume share of fresh Irish eating apples to 25% in 10 years, while we maximize opportunities for cooking and cider apples through the development, again, of value-added products. In conclusion, there's no single easy solution to ensure we develop the sector and have sustainability of the sector. But as I mentioned at the start, again, the most direct way we can achieve our strategic ambition is to create an environment where existing growers and businesses have confidence to expand their business and to reinvest. We've identified a range of actions across the whole sector and subsectors, and policy action, collaboration between the key stakeholders are key elements that we need to succeed. And I think this report sets a good foundation for the continuing process, where the department will develop a specific strategy for the horticulture sector. And I think the inputs that we've received so far, and what we have in this report will go a long way with future consultation to really ensure that we can achieve our strategic ambition for the horticulture sector going forward. Thank you very much. That concludes the presentation from my side. I will hand over to Louise to close off our session. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody, and many thanks, Requive, for that excellent presentation. My name is Louise Byrne. I'm Deputy Chief Inspector in the Department of Agriculture, with responsibility for horticulture and plant health, amongst other areas. So, as Requive has said, he has set a kind of a strategic ambition for the overall sector to grow a more profitable, value-added sector driven by sustainability and innovation. Those two words seem to be key. And What's also key is by doing that, by giving the existing growers and businesses the confidence to expand and diversify. There's no doubt innovation offers the key to an economically vibrant and sustainable Irish horticulture sector, and will at the same time aid the delivery on Ireland's climate and environmental commitments. Innovation needs research and development and support for that, as well as insight and intelligence. We're already looking at what's possible here. The Teagasc Innovation Workshop in Ashtown in April brought together a number of key players in this field and generated some interesting discussions around new product development. It is also clear that a sustainable and circular bioeconomy in which food systems are embedded will help to develop and grow the horticulture sector. Our trade customers and our consumer markets are increasingly demanding credible evidence that food and food ingredients and the plants that we grow are produced and packaged in a sustainable way. The development of hortimetrics will be vital to provide this evidence, and a Teagasc-led team is looking at potential frameworks to use. Reducing food waste is also key. KPMG report calls out the need for more collaboration between growers and other stakeholders, including, very importantly, retailers. This is key in my mind. Producers in the fruit and vegetable sector can benefit from 80% support for research and development under the new CAP-funded PO scheme. And I would also encourage growers to take advantage of the newly secured funding for new POs in the amenity and tillage sectors and others. KPMG also point out the need for horticulture to be integrated back into the broader agricultural knowledge and innovation system to create an environment conducive to growth and for greater resourcing of horticulture advisory service. There's also a focus on building on the sector promotions planned by Board BIA, which could further call out the sector's low environmental impact, again using the hortimetrics, and thereby supporting import substitution. The development of a strategy for the sector by Q1 of 2023 will ensure the implementation of those actions that will deliver the biggest benefits for the sector. And this is a body of work that needs to be done now. An email will be sent to you to all registered for today's workshop with a link to the report and a link to the recording. As the Minister said, we are very open to receiving any written comments on the report itself. I would like to reiterate Minister Hackett's comments by thanking the Horticulture Industry Forum Subcommittee and KPMG for all their work on this report. But I also want to thank my own team in the department for their tremendous work on this report, and more generally on behalf of the horticulture sector. Thank you all very much for attending today, and I wish you well over the summer, and here's to a bright and ambitious future for the horticulture sector in Ireland. Thank you.